Hello. So, we've talked in the past about divorce and whether or not people decide to get divorced, I think, is an extremely personal decision. I will never ever be caught advising someone on a hard yes, absolutely leave that person. Except, I think I said it once before that I did advise one person one time because her husband was physically harming her. And I was like, get out right now. So you might say, well, isn't narcissistic abuse? Isn't that abuse? Why wouldn't you hard advise someone to get out of that marriage? I just wouldn't. I don't want to be held responsible for the dissolution of someone's marriage. It is a humongous life altering decision as to whether or not you actually divorce. I can, however, advise extensively on what happens to the kids after a divorce because I am one. And I had one. So, to put it into perspective of how much of an expert I am, let's just talk about the math of my life for 1 second. I was 4 when my parents got divorced. I was 9 when my dad got remarried and 19 when he got his second divorce. So that was a 10-year marriage I had. I was a stepchild for the first time. I was 16 when my mother got remarried, and she got divorced when I was 43. So that was like a 25, 26-year marriage that she had. And my dad met my now stepmom, they've been together over 30 years, when I was 21. And it's not just me, I'm not an only child. So I've seen every possible reaction, relationship with different step parents from different children through the years. And the one thing that I can tell you is people say, oh, are the kids going to be all right? Are the kids going to be all right? The kids are going to be all right. They're going to be all right. Now, to have a divorce at age 4, I hardly remember my parents together. But I venture to say it was a very good thing that happened because now my parents are friends. I had Mother's Day with all 3 of my parents. 3 of my parents. My mother, my father, and my stepmother and me. Wonderful, lovely Mother's Day. Because that's how we've all decided to go forth in life. My father's marriage has allowed me to see a healthy example of what a marriage can be. Or a gloriously happy example of what I think a marriage can attain. A companionship, a partnership, a symbiosis. These are the things you want your children to emulate, yes? So, again, I'm not advising you to get a divorce. But a lot of times I'm asked with, well, how did you deal with it? I'll be honest with you. At age 4, like I said, you don't really remember much. But at age 19, that was a hard one. I was very close with my first stepmother. Very close. I was age 9 to 19 with that stepmother. And it becomes, what kind of a relationship will you have after? Will you continue to visit each other? Will it be, you know what I mean? It can be tricky to navigate the murky waters. But it all works out in the end. Now you might say, well, Renee, you don't really know how you may have become affected in a way that was negative from your birth parents' divorce. And you know what? You're right. I don't know. If my parents had stayed married, I'd be in a completely different place right now. I would be a completely different person right now. I would have been looking at a marriage that probably wouldn't have worked out very well. My parents were married 10 years. So by the time I was 4, they divorced with 3 kids. So to look forward to a marriage that would have just built on whatever made them get divorced, that wouldn't have been healthy. How would that have been healthy? I don't even understand how that would have looked. So I would have been coming home from school to what? Unhappy parents? I would have been sitting on the couch watching movies in an unhappy, quiet household because the parents aren't getting along. And I don't even remember my parents not getting along because I was so young. So maybe they saved me from seeing something that would have otherwise been extremely unpleasant. And I'm telling you, the longer it goes on, you become closer and more attached to that relationship, be it your natural parents or not. You become attached to that relationship, and then there's going to be a breakage, and that's going to be hard for the kids. You worry. Maybe your narcissist is your kid's stepfather, and you're worried, well, how's it going to go? I mean, he knows them now. He's been around for... I had a stepfather for 25 years, and now I don't. You get through it. You move past it. It just happens. Your children will bend and navigate their own murky waters, and they will find their way. But I can tell you that the most constructive instruction you can give them is by example. That I 1000% can tell you. Kids don't need to be taught lessons with words all the time. They can see. They can see your example. They can lead by you can lead by your example. If they see that you're happy in this relationship and it's working out this way, a kid can decipher what's working and what isn't. I knew both times the divorces of both my parents were going to happen before they told me, because a kid can sense it. And that's what I wanted to elaborate on, because I was talking about that in a video recently. Kids know. They can sense it. You're not fooling them. And that's not to say, again, I'm telling you to get divorced. I am trying to tell you that kids bounce. Kids will find their own happiness in their own life. Remember, we only really have them under our roof, in our control, till they're like 18, 17 years old anyway. And then they're off to college and then building their own lives. So the time that you have control over your child's surroundings is a finite amount of time. There is a very, very long life past 17 or 18 years old that your child is going to be in the world, around you, around spouses, new spouses, ex-spouses. I'm 53. It's still happening in my life. So kids are adaptable. They are resilient. Even adult kids are adaptable and resilient. But no child, adult or young, wants to see their parent unhappy, wants to have their home uneasy, wants to feel eggshells when they walk in. You can feel it when there's an undercurrent of stress or anger or marital problems. I don't care what you put on the dinner table and who you invite over for Sunday and how you try to make everything seem. Your child knows, whether they are 4, 19, or 43. They know the divorce is coming. I joke, because at 4, obviously, I didn't know. But at 4, I was probably more resilient than I was at 19 or 43. What can be the residual? I didn't know any different. I don't know any different. So for all of the worry and the concern we place on our children and how are they going to be, and oh my God, there's grandchildren now, which there were. When I was 43, there were grandchildren on earth that knew this step-parent. Now there's going to be another demise of a marriage. How's that going to go? Kids bounce with proper guidance from you. So they might need a little extra nurturing, or you might need to talk to them or explain things or try to have the uncomfortable discussion. Sweeping it under the rug and never mentioning it and hoping they don't notice isn't the way to go. I'm telling you right out, it's not the way to go. You need to buck up and be honest with your children. They see if you're unhappy. And nobody wants that for their parent. Nobody wants that for their parent. Oh my God. What child would want their parent to walk around unhappy? So I commend those of you that are sticking it out and whatever, whether it be for the children or for yourself or wishing for the love bombing guy to come back. Whatever the reasons are that you are staying, I commend your efforts. But if it's because you worry about what the children are going to do or how they're going to react, or... My brother used to say to his kids, bad news doesn't get better with age, because he was trying to encourage them as littles. If something breaks, if you do so, tell me right away. It only gets worse the longer you wait. Bad news doesn't get better with age. If you feel inevitably in your heart like this is headed for demise, Bad news doesn't get better with age. Meaning if you've already decided, your husband knows it, you both know it, it's inevitable, and you're like, oh, the kids are 10 and 12, let's wait till they're 18. Really? You don't understand that that is probably going to be more difficult for them to bounce back from? So what, now they're in college, you're going to, what, call them up at school and say, we're getting a divorce? Oh, no, you can't. Okay, so let's wait till they graduate college. Okay, so now they're engaged, and you don't want to wreck their wedding. Well, let's just wait till their wedding's over. Boom, you're on 30 years. There's never a good time. But with the proper guidance and instruction and care and love from you, your child will flourish. They're not confused into thinking that nobody ever divorces. It's everywhere. It's in their school. It's in TV. It's on movies. They know divorce happens. And if you are not blindsiding them, like say you were like the happiest couple in the world and all of a sudden you had a fight and you're divorcing, boom, that's probably going to blindside them. But if there's been an undercurrent and it's been something that you've both been thinking about and toying with, and you know it's probably the best, both of you sit down with them. It can be an extremely helpful learning point going forward with your children. And I'm just here to tell you, what you expect from your children is what you give into it. If you sit them down and you discuss things with them and you assure them that they're going to be loved and you assure them that they are the priority and you assure them that the animosity is going to stop, they will be your cheerleader for that divorce. That's the angle maybe that you want to say. Guess what? All of this animosity you felt is going to be over. Gonna be over. No more. We're never gonna, that's gone. And you'll be surprised at how supportive your kids may be for you because they've seen what you're going through. So I just wanted to bring that up. I am here to tell you it is possible. I've done it several times. And it doesn't have to be ugly. It doesn't have to be a big, huge thing. It can be a transitional time of getting to a place of peace. And your child might choose never to speak to the step-parent that you're divorcing again. Your child may go through a time of anger if it's even like their original parents and you guys are, they might go through a time of anger or upset. But if you speak to them like they can understand you, they just think kids don't get it. Try to find the language. Sit down with them and find the proper, honest language. Kids want honesty from you. I'm not saying your dirty details, but when we married, we loved each other. We had this family. People grow apart. You know what to say, but they need to hear it from you, maybe even together. And your kids will be fine. They will be fine. Now, so you might say, oh, you don't understand. My daughter's so sensitive. She's really close to her father, and if we divorce, she's going to be mad at me. That's a challenge you'll have then. But these aren't reasons to squish down your happiness because, let me tell you something, they can tell if you're miserable. So when you start thinking about your children and if they're going to be okay and what to expect from them, they're going to get out of the divorce experience what you make it for them. I wrote down everything I was going to say to my child when I got divorced, and I read it to her. She was 5, turning 6. And when I was done, because of the way I worded it, she goes, yay! In the back seat of the car. I remember. I remember her going, yay! Because I told her in the car on the way home from school, driving, and I had pulled over to get, I think, like a Slurpee for her at like 7-Eleven. And I had the courage right at that moment. I clicked her in her seat, I got in the front, and I took out what I had written down, and I'm looking at her, and I'm telling her, and she said, yay, when I was done. Because I made her realize that going forward, this is the healthiest decision for both of us. You are absolutely worshipped and loved. This is nothing that has anything to do with anything dysfunctional. You have to let them know this has nothing to do with them. You have to tell them that, make them know that, without making them think that it might be them if they've never had that thought to begin with. That's tricky. But I said, we both love you. You know how much fun we have together. But we just think that living apart is going to be for the betterment of both of us. And she had seen us fight. So I mentioned all that fighting that you had seen. That's no more. No more. Never going to happen. And she was excited. It's how you approach the child is what they're going to take from it. If they see you crying, screaming, yelling, not wanting it, throwing things at you, I don't want this, your father wants this. Well, then they're going to come away from it a little dysfunctional. You have to approach it like it was teamwork and it was a team decision, even if it was not. You got to try to get on that page, and your children will be just fine. I just wanted to mention that from experience. That's all.